Every 4th of July has a soundtrack. Some songs blast through backyard speakers with burgers on the grill, others drift across beaches and parks, and some become the soundtracks to fireworks as the sun goes down. Today we're going to spend some time with a few of these songs. A few are classics, a few may surprise you, and one or two might just earn a spot on your 4th of July playlist. Along the way, we'll discover one that was inspired by a 4th of July celebration in New York City Central Park. Another one wasn't even written by an American, and two have roots right here in San Diego, and perhaps the biggest surprise of all is America's most famous 4th of July music celebrates a Russian victory over Napoleon. This is Christopher, and welcome back to Horde of the Pie, the podcast where music history, the stories behind the songs, and a little something in your glass all come together. Today, we're celebrating Independence Day just a little differently, not with patriotic anthems, but with songs that have become the soundtrack of an American 4th of July, and the surprising stories behind each one of them. And if you've listened to my show for a while, you know that I'm a big fan of alt country. So this episode gives me a chance to introduce you to a few songs from a genre that I think deserves a much bigger audience. So grab yourself a favorite summer drink, find a shady spot, and let's press play. Here's something I've always loved about this song. It's one of the most recognizable 4th of July songs ever recorded, yet it really isn't about 4th of July at all. Saturday in the Park reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1972, and it became Chicago's highest charting single at that point, helping send Chicago forward to number 1, and it was later certified gold after selling more than 1 million copies in the United States. But its story begins 2 years earlier in New York City Central Park. Exactly how the song came to be depends on who's remembering it. Chicago's Walter Perezader recalled Robert Lamb coming back from Central Park on the 4th of July in 1970, excited about what he had just seen. Steel drums, jugglers, musicians, dancers, and the park was overflowing with life. People dancing, people laughing, a man selling ice cream. Years later, Robert Lamb remembered it just a little differently. He said that the song came from while he was watching film footage he had shot over several visits to Central Park. He was watching people relaxing, performing, laughing, and simply enjoying each other's company, and he started writing down ideas. But like a lot of great memories, the details had shifted over the years. But the feeling stayed exactly the same. Lamb wasn't trying to write a patriotic song. He was trying to capture what it feels like when thousands of strangers gather together and for one perfect summer afternoon, simply enjoy each other's presence. And I've been waiting such a long time for Saturday. And that's why the 4th of July really isn't the subject of the song, it's the backdrop. The setting for families, friends, music, laughter, and one unforgettable day in the park. The lyrics are filled with little snapshots, a man selling ice cream, people dancing, people laughing. And then comes that line that we all remember, but even if it felt just a little out of place. Singing Italian songs. Right there, Lamb slips in a quick reference to the song E Compare, the 1953 novelty hit made famous by Julius La Rosa. Hey compare, ci vuoi suonare, chi si suona un friscaletto. You know I always love a little international moment on our show, and if anything, just to hear me mess up the pronunciation. But if you ever wondered what he was saying, now you know. And then comes my favorite line in the entire song. It's not Saturday in the Park, it was the 4th of July. It's Saturday in the Park, I think it was the 4th of July. I think, 2 simple words, but they're perfect. Because that shows how memories work. You don't always remember every detail, you remember how the day made you feel. In the park, I think it was the 4th of July. And maybe that's why this song has become such a big part of so many 4th of July celebrations. Not because it's patriotic, but because it reminds us of what the very best 4th of Julys are really about. Friends, family, and music, and one perfect summer afternoon. And I'd say it's a pretty good place to begin our soundtrack of an American 4th of July. Looking out a dirty old window, down below the cars in the city go rushing. Now, I have to admit it, I learn a lot from my own damn show sometimes, because when I learned the story behind the song, I didn't believe it. Because if you asked me to name songs that sounded completely American, this one would have been at the very top of my list. Friday night and everyone's moving. I can feel the heat, but it's soothing. But here's the twist. It isn't American, not even close. Kids in America was released in 1981 and reached number 25 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming Kim Wilde's breakthrough hit in the United States. But Kim Wilde wasn't American. She was British. The music was written by her younger brother, Ricky Wilde. The lyrics were co-written by their father, Marty Wilde, who was one of Britain's first rock and roll stars. So how does a British family end up writing one of the most American-sounding songs in the 1980s? Well, it started with a documentary. Marty Wilde had been watching a program about American teenagers and was fascinated by their confidence and energy. He turned to Ricky and said, "What's the title?" Ricky responded, "Kids in America." At the time, Ricky was trying to establish himself as a songwriter and producer, so he played some of his songs for legendary British producer Mickie Most. While listening to the demos, Most heard Kim singing background vocals and asked a simple question: does she sing? Ricky answered, well, yes. Most smiled and said, then go write her a hit. So Ricky went home and spent the weekend writing the music for Kids in America. Later, Kim joked that she was trying to get to sleep while Ricky sat in the next room playing that now famous synthesizer riff over and over and over again. But that riff would launch her career. Yep, even a shout out to California. Now, here's what I love most about this story. It wasn't written from experience, it was written from curiosity. A British family imagined what growing up in America must have been like, and somehow they captured something millions of Americans recognized in themselves. More than 40 years later, Kids in America still sounds like summer. Maybe it took someone looking across the Atlantic to remind us what America looked like through someone else's eyes. If you've never heard this next song, then you're in for a treat. Now, I've been a fan of alt country for a long time, like I said, but one of the things that I love about the genre is its storytelling. Sometimes the biggest stories aren't attached to the biggest hits. They're attached to the best songs, and this is one of them.
She's waiting for me when I get home from work.
The 4th of July appeared on Robert Earl Keen's 1997 album, Picnic. Now, it was never a pop hit. It never climbed the Billboard Hot 100, but among Robert Earl Keen's fans, it's become one of his most beloved songs.
She won't answer when I call her name.
And here's the part I didn't know until I started researching this episode. Robert Earl Keen didn't write it. It was written by Steve Poltz. And if you're from San Diego, there's a good chance you've heard that name before.
Mexican kids are shooting fireworks below.
Long before the rest of the country discovered him, Steve Poltz had become one of San Diego's most respected singer-songwriters. He fronted the band The Rugburns, built a loyal following in local clubs, and later co-wrote one of the biggest songs in the 1990s, Jules, You Were Meant for Me.
Hey, baby, it's the 4th of July.
So how does a San Diego songwriter end up writing one of Robert Earl Keen's signature songs? Well, that's one of the things I love about great songwriting. The right song eventually finds the right voice. Steve Poltz had always had a gift for writing songs that feel lived in, songs that feel like memories. And the 4th of July fits that tradition perfectly. It's not about parades or fireworks or waving flags. It's about family, tradition, and the people we gather with, and the emotions that quietly sneak up on us during the holidays.
The 4th of July, it's the 4th of July.
Sometimes the songs that become part of our lives aren't the ones that dominate the radio. They're the ones that someone shares with us, the ones we discover years after everyone else. And for me, this is one of those songs. And if you've never heard it before, well, I hope it becomes part of your 4th of July soundtrack too.
The 4th of July. I watched 3 old soldiers just stand there and cry at the sight of the skyrockets on the 4th day of July.
Speaking of San Diego, here's another 4th of July song that deserves to be heard. Unlike Chicago or Kim Wilde or even Robert Earl Keen, this isn't a song most people already know, but sometimes the best discoveries are the ones you've never heard before.
And on this day, Grandma will weep, for Grandpa was lost, with his memories she keeps.
Robert Vaughn and the Dead River Angels were one of San Diego's most respected bands during the late 1980s and the 90s. And this wasn't just a local band hoping for a lucky break. Robert Vaughn earned a major label recording contract, received critical acclaim, and the band's self-titled album won the San Diego Music Award for Best Rock Album. National stardom may have never arrived, but that doesn't diminish the music.
And carry me home.
One of the things I love about putting together this podcast is getting to introduce listeners to songs they might not have heard of on their own. And this is one of those songs. If you've never heard of Robert Vaughn and the Dead River Angels before, you have now.
What a beautiful sight on the 4th of July.
And I hope that years from now, when the 4th of July rolls around, this is one of the songs that finds its way back onto your song list. Because sometimes the best traditions are the ones we start ourselves.
And be proud where you come from, son. 'Cause it's a beautiful night on the 4th of July.
If Chicago gave us the 4th of July in Central Park, then Bruce Springsteen gave us the one on the Jersey Shore. 4th of July, Asbury Park, Sandy first appeared on Bruce's 1973 album, The Wilde, The Innocent, and The E Street Shuffle. It was never released as a single here in the United States, and really it didn't need to be. For Springsteen fans, it became one of the most defining songs in his early career. Bruce once said that when people asked him what Asbury Park was like, he'd simply play them this song, because to him, this wasn't just about Sandy, it was about home. The opening line says everything.
Sandy, the fireworks are hailing over Little Eden tonight.
And just like that, you're standing on the boardwalk. Little Eden wasn't just a poetic lyric. It was Bruce's nickname for a section of the Asbury Park waterfront that he knew by heart. Bruce filled the song with real people and real places. Madame Marie, the famous fortune teller of Asbury Park Boardwalk, she was a real person. The boardwalk was real, the arcades are real, the dreamers, the kids trying to figure out where life was taking them, they were all real too.
The Wizards play down on Pinball Way, on the boardwalk way past dark.
What's interesting is that Bruce never confirmed whether Sandy was a real person or not. The older I get, the less I think that's the point. I think Sandy is simply the person he's writing to. The real love letter is to Asbury Park.
Sandy, the aurora is rising behind us.
Even the recording has its own little surprise. Bruce originally wanted a children's choir singing behind him. When the choir never showed up, Suki Lahav, the wife of the recording engineer, overdubbed her own voice again and again until it sounded like an entire choir. Then there's one last story. If you're a Bruce fan, you probably already know where we're going with this. Within the E Street Band, Sandy became Danny Federici's song. From the very first notes, it's Danny's accordion that gives the song its soul. If you close your eyes, you can almost hear the carousel, smell the salt air, and see the lights of the boardwalk. In 2008, Danny stepped away from the band while battling melanoma. A few months later, he was well enough to make one final appearance with Bruce. When Bruce asked him what he wanted to play, Danny chose Sandy. It would be the last time he ever performed the song. Danny passed away just a few weeks later. Ever since, Sandy has carried an extra layer of emotion for Bruce and the U Street Band. A song that began as a love letter to the Jersey Shore also became a love letter to one of Bruce's oldest friends. So we spent the day in New York, England, Texas, San Diego, and the Jersey Shore. And as we head our way to the end of this 4th of July playlist, I want to make room for a song that carries just a little more weight.
Like you, I've been hurt, seen my face in the dirt.
The song 4th of July appears on Pete Droge's 1994 album Necktie Second, and it was never a hit single, and that's okay, because Pete Droge has always been one of those artists that musicians seem to discover long before the rest of the world does.
The last time we met, you seemed so upset.
If you've never heard of Pete Droge, you're not alone. But here's what always impressed me. Some of the biggest names in music knew exactly how talented he was.
Heard you'd been seen way down in Eugene, working as a factory.
Rick Rubin signed him, Tom Petty invited him on tour, and Johnny Cash shared the stage with him. By all accounts, Pete Droge had every ingredient for a breakout career. Somehow, it just never quite happened. But there's a good chance you've heard his music anyway. Millions of people heard the music without even realizing it when If You Don't Love Me, I'll Kill Myself appeared in Dumb and Dumber.
I'll be good to you in every way. I'll give you loving, baby, every day.
Such a good song. We loved playing this song in our duo. Whenever we would get to the chorus, people would start laughing, and it's not because they were laughing at the song. It's just they didn't expect the payoff. Yeah, kind of extreme tactics, right? Anyway, always had a soft spot for Pete Droge and loved that song. But anyway, back to 4th of July.
When you're sick of the trying.
So 4th of July isn't his best known recording, but I think it's one of his best. And I should mention that this isn't a celebratory 4th of July song either. It's a song about losing someone who reaches a point where they no longer see a way forward. The 4th of July isn't the story, it's the setting. While everyone else is celebrating, one person slips quietly away.
Then the 4th of July.
And that's what makes the song so powerful. It reminds us that joy and heartbreak can exist in the same day. And for me, that's the mark of a truly great songwriter. Pete Droge takes a holiday we all know and turns it into something deeply human. One of the unexpected joys of doing this podcast is getting to introduce listeners to artists they may have missed the first time around. For me, Pete Droge is one of those artists.
They'll celebrate each year your independence from here.
And after a song like that by Pete Droge, I think we could probably all use a little sunshine. Shooter Jennings released 4th of July in 2005 on his debut album, Put the O Back in Country, and it became the biggest hit of his career, reaching top 25 of the country charts.
Alone with the morning burning red.
Shooter said he originally wrote the song while playfully imitating the red dirt and Texas country sound that was becoming so popular at that time. He wasn't trying to write a song that would define his career. He was simply having fun.
Driving across country in a dusty old RV.
Kind of funny how that happens, right? The songs that artists don't take seriously sometimes become the ones that audiences never let go.
Looking at you with the world in the rear view.
Now, of course, it doesn't hurt that country music was practically in Shooter Jennings' DNA. He's the son of Waylon Jennings and Jessie Coulter, country music royalty. But instead of trying to copy his father, Shooter carved out his own sound, blending outlaw country with southern rock and a little bit of attitude. And 4th of July captures that perfectly.
Telling me you love me and you're happy to be with me on the 4th of July.
It's a road trip song, it's a roll down the window song, and it's a crank it up while the fireworks start song.
Put on a little George Jones and just sing along.
After everything we've heard today, the nostalgia of Chicago, the youthful energy of Kim Wilde, the storytelling of Robert Earl Keen, the hometown pride of Robert Vaughn, the emotion of Bruce Springsteen, and the heartbreak of Pete Droge, Shooter Jennings reminds us that sometimes the 4th of July is exactly what we hoped it would be. Friends, music, a warm summer night, and fireworks overhead.
Sitting in the front seat looking at me, telling me you love me and you're happy to be with me on the 4th of July.
Now, before we get to today's cocktail, there's one more piece of music that we need to talk about, and it may be the biggest surprise of the entire episode. And if you've ever stayed through a 4th of July fireworks show at the fair, you've almost certainly heard this piece of music. The 1812 Overture was composed by Tchaikovsky in 1880. Today, it's one of the most recognizable pieces of classical music ever written. And for many Americans, it's simply part of 4th of July. Except it has nothing to do with America's Independence Day. It was actually written to commemorate Russia's defense against Napoleon's invasion in 1812. Think about that for a second. The piece of music most closely associated with America's birthday was written by a Russian composer to celebrate Russia defeating France. And how did this happen? Well, credit actually goes to Arthur Fiedler and the Boston Pops Orchestra. In the 1970s, Fiedler began ending Independence Day concerts with the 1812 Overture. And not quietly either. He ended with real cannons, church bells, and fireworks. Everything Tchaikovsky imagined. Only now, it was happening on 4th of July. Audiences loved it. Other orchestras copied the idea. Television broadcasts made it tradition. And before long, a Russian celebration of victory over Napoleon had become the unofficial soundtrack of America's Independence Day. And I think that's wonderful because after everything we've talked about today, maybe that's how traditions are born. Not because somebody plans them, but because year after year, people decide on what's worth repeating. And somehow, a piece of music written nearly 150 years ago, halfway around the world, found a second home every 4th of July in America. This year, America celebrates 250 years, and that's a pretty remarkable milestone. Whether your 4th of July tradition is a backyard barbecue, a neighborhood parade, concert in the park, or simply watching fireworks with family and friends, traditions are what make holidays memorable. Many of these songs we talked about today became traditions the very same way. Not because someone planned it, but because year after year, people kept coming back to them. And speaking of traditions, let's make one more. Today's cocktail is called the Porch Swing. It's bright, refreshing, and just bourbon forward enough to remind you that it's still a whiskey drink. Perfect for a warm summer evening with great music, good friends, and fireworks just over the horizon. And here's how you're going to make it. You're going to take 2 ounces of bourbon, 1 ounce of fresh lemon juice, 1/4 ounce of honey syrup, 2 dashes of Angostura bitters, and then 2 to 3 ounces of sparkling lemonade. What you're going to do first is you're going to add all the ingredients but the lemonade into a shaker. You're going to shake that well with ice. You're going to strain that into a double rocks glass filled with fresh ice, top with sparkling lemonade, and give it just a little gentle stir. Garnish with a lemon wheel and a sprig of mint. It's crisp, refreshing, and not overly sweet. Just the kind of drink that belongs on the porch while the music plays on and the sun starts to go down. Well, thanks for spending part of your 4th of July with me, and I hope you discovered a few stories you hadn't heard before, and maybe even found a song or two you're going to add to your own 4th of July soundtrack. So, if you enjoyed today's episode, I'd really appreciate if you follow the show, leave a review, and share it with somebody who loves great music and stories. And until next time, here's the loud riffs, quiet sips, and the stories in between. Happy 4th of July. Thanks for listening.